For our listeners who have never heard of the fine-tuning problem, I'm wondering if you could explain what it is and if you have a favored solution to it that helps you sleep at night.
Well, the fine-tuning problem is a bit vague, but it sort of refers to the fact um, that in order for life to exist in the universe, there have to be certain obvious conditions. Restricting it to life as we know it, the life-giving molecule is carbon, and carbon didn't exist in the Big Bang. It got manufactured inside stars, which then blew up and spewed the carbon around the universe. So the carbon atoms in you and me were cooked inside stars. And the process that leads to the creation of that carbon depends upon some basic physics. But if things were a bit different for that basic physics, then the carbon wouldn't exist and you and I wouldn't exist. And it's likely that no life would exist. And that's just one example of many that what you need to have life in the universe. It's a list of things. Carbon is one. What about stars? So the sun keeps life on Earth ticking over. Stable stars like the sun wouldn't exist if the fundamental physics were different, and so it goes on. And so what people normally do is they draw up a list of what are called the constants of nature. Uh, and what we mean by that, these are parameters that enter into the laws of physics. Give you a very simple example, the law of gravitation, first worked out by Newton. Um, the attraction between two bodies, so the Earth and the Sun, we know how that varies according to the distance of the two objects, but the actual amount of the pull, the force between the Earth and the Sun, that's you just have to measure it. And that's one of the fundamental constants of nature. It's a universal constant. So once you know that number, it will tell you what the force is between two galaxies or two black holes and so on. It's the same number as Newton's gravitational constant. It has a particular number. You can look it up. I can't remember what it is. But you can say, well, supposing that number had been different, 10 times bigger or 10 times smaller, would the universe be any different? And you can make a list of these numbers, and they're 30 something. And you can ask the question, if you didn't like the universe as it is and you change something, and you might make all electrons a bit bigger, or neutrinos a bit more massive, or the strong nuclear force a bit stronger. You can tinker around with any of those things and then ask the question, how would the universe change? And the answer is that for a lot of those changes, it wouldn't make a great deal of difference. But there are a few of those parameters where even the slightest change would have lethal consequences. If we have an imaginary universe in which some of those numbers were different, there will be no life. And so then people think, well, how did we get so lucky? Here we are in a universe that's life encouraging, in which the numbers have come out just right to permit our existence. Is that some sort of divine providence, or is it just a lucky fluke, or is there some other explanation? And many of my colleagues think the other explanation goes back to this multiverse. We were talking earlier about the many universes interpretation of quantum mechanics. Well, it's a sort of variant on that maybe there isn't just one universe, maybe there's an infinite number of universes, and that what we've been calling the universe is just one in this vast stack of different universes that are sort of out there in some sense. And if the universes are born with slightly different values of these numbers, then if you could take a sort of God's eye view of that entire assemblage, you would find that in the vast majority of those universes, life would not be possible. Those universes would go unseen and uncelebrated, but just here and there, just by accident, all the numbers would come out right. The cookie would crumble in the right sort of way, and here we are. We're in one such universe, and we think, well, how do we get so lucky? Well, the answer is, of course, we couldn't uh, exist in any of the bio-hostile universes. It's a truism to say um, that a universe that cannot support life is going to obviously be unobserved. So we live in a life-encouraging universe because that's, of course, where we can actually live. And so that in a nutshell, that's what the fine-tuning argument and its possible resolutions are. My own feeling about it is I think that the multiverse is um, it's better than just saying, well, God did it, which doesn't really explain anything, but it falls short of a complete explanation. So I think at this stage, we don't, we obviously don't know, but I'm not sure we've even got the right conceptual framework for tackling it. I think because we accept that the laws of physics, with these constants that might be different, it could be different, but the laws of physics are sort of given. We accept them as like a brute fact. We don't say where do the laws of physics come from, or why do they have the form that they do. We don't have a theory of the laws of physics. It seems to me that if we had a deeper level, deeper theory, a way of trying to understand the nature of the laws of physics themselves, why those laws, and whether they are literally fixed and immutable, or whether they can vary, or whether they could have been different, and why. If we have a theory of those laws, then it could be that we can connect our own existence as minds, comprehending, thinking observers in the universe. We can find a way of connecting that to the nature of the laws themselves. We don't have such a theory. We can see the ghost of something like that through quantum effects, which can reach back in time, just as they can reach forward in time, and which, as we've discussed already at great length, that the making a measurement or an observation has an effect on the system. It brings into being, if we're measuring the, remember, if we're measuring the position of an atom, the measurement brings into being an atom at a place. Can we conceive that a conscious being like ourselves can bring into being a universe with the right properties to support life? Well, some people think so. John Wheeler, the great American physicist who coined the term black hole, is famous for that. But he believed that the accumulated observations of all conscious observers over the entire, maybe infinite future history of the universe could, in some sense, reach back in time and ensure through self-consistency a universe in which those observers would exist. Stephen Hawking came up with a similar idea, and I too flirted with an idea like that in my earlier book called The Goldilocks Enigma. Why is the universe just right for life? These are all ways of trying to connect observers, minds, if you like, with the nature of the laws that give rise to those observers. It's a work in progress. I can't say I've made very much progress, but I thought about it for decades.